Hey guys, welcome to the Bleed Blue podcast. This is where we talk about everything Evil Geniuses. This is actually pretty strange for me because I'm actually recording this. It's still Sunday, but it's earlier in the day, which is just kind of different for me. Normally, I record these on Sunday night, so it feels a little odd doing an episode during the day. But nonetheless, we're gonna get it done. I have some stuff I got to take care of later today, and so I just figured I should get this out or record this rather when I can. It's still gonna get posted same time for you guys, so you're still all gonna be watching this, on Monday. Or at least that's when the video comes out, let alone when you watch it. It's up to you. But yeah, we have some interesting topics to go through today. I just want to clarify, I'm not going to be talking about anything esports scene related in terms of the recent events that have been going on. If that's something I want to talk about, I'll probably make a separate video about it. So this is going to be pretty obviously, it's just going to be EG centric, EG focused. And so I figured the best place to start is going to be with the CDPA and FE teams. So for those who are a little bit unaware, the CD team is the team with Russian Stanislaw. The PA team is the Party Astronauts roster with Ponalone and Jonji and the crew. And then the FE team is the female team. And so you've got let's see, you've got Milk, Jessica S, Garden, Piggy, Kiki, Empathy, and the coach is Onter. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Could be wrong. But yeah, and so I kind of want to just to start. We're gonna kind of blow through these pretty quickly because there's a lot of stuff going on with the main roster that are coming up in this next week, and so really want to focus on those key points for them. It's a big week for them, so we're gonna get through kind of some of the side news first, and then we'll get into the meaty stuff later on in the episode. So kind of wanted to talk. We're just gonna go down the list. So for the FE team, the female team. I know they played a game yesterday. I didn't get to watch it. I was about to watch it, and then I couldn't find a stream, and then but it looked like the team they were playing against forfeited a match or something, and so they played they played only one map or maybe two at most. I don't really know how that worked. But yeah, so I didn't get to see that game, but they're playing tonight. If you guys want to, well, I mean, obviously, I say they're playing tonight, but really that means for you guys, it's already happened yesterday. But yeah, they're playing on Sunday today at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. They're going to be playing against CLG Red in the ESL Impact Summer 2022 Cash Cup for North America. And that's not for North America, it's Cash Cup number 4. Um, let me clarify that. And so for those who aren't sure how good CLG is, CLG is I believe they are the best female team. I could be wrong on that front, but I want to say they are the best female Counter Strike team right now. They have Goose Breeder, Bibion, Kelsey. I don't know how to pronounce that. Cowday, and Mads. Their coach is flashy. Listen, I don't keep up with the female scene too well. I really don't. But I'm pretty sure CLG is one of the best, if not the best, female team. So they've got a lot to kind of to prove, I guess, here. So we'll see how they do. I can't promise I'm going to be watching all that I'm going to be able to watch the series because, like I said, I have some stuff I got to take care of later today. But if I can, I'll try to, and I'll kind of see how everyone does. I'm actually, this is pretty interesting for me because I actually don't really know how good our team is in terms of, I'm not sure. I think some of these players are pretty new. Um, Maybe they're not. Maybe I'm just completely wrong. Like I said, I'm not super experienced when it comes to the female scene. So if one of you does know, then yeah, feel free to leave a comment and educate me on that because that's something that I need to get more up to speed with, I guess. But yeah, best of luck. Plays at 6 p.m. It's a best of 3. So yeah, best of luck to the EG FE female team, and hopefully they can pull out a dub. That'd be sick. So best of luck. Yeah, kind of moving along into the EG Carpe Diem team. Look, this is going to be a little bit more concerning. Last week they lost to Philadelphia to Team 1, 2-1. And then this week they played against two different teams. They played against Victorum. By the way, this was for the ESL Challenger Rotterdam 2022 North America Open Qualifier, number 2. These names, man, they're just so ridiculous. But anyways, they played Victorum. For those who don't really know Victorum has Soulgoat, Atomic, Sluggy, Drew, and Isaac. If I'm not super familiar with Victorum, but they beat Victorum in their best of one. Then in another best of one, they had to play against Iron Blood. Now, for those of you who aren't sure what who is on Iron Blood, this is that team with Dare, Snav, Intra, Shane, Droid. It's the roster that, or some of those players were banned a little bit, but they're very talented. They're unbanned now, and hopefully they're on the right track. They are a strong roster. They have some very strong players. Dare in particular is pretty. He pops off pretty hard. And EGCD couldn't take them down. They lost 16-12 in that best of one, and so they had to go out of the qualifier. And this isn't really me talking about this team in a negative light, just because I think they should like be beating this team every day of the week or anything like that. Because I understand they have new roster changes, right? They have Walco, Wiz, Walco, Wiz, Chop. And then they have Stanislaw and Rush, and it's kind of a new addition to the team. It's going to take some time. I understand that, but where I have concerns with this team is it just feels like long term. This is just like a very concerning roster. Like I almost feel like I'm almost positive. Let me put it this way: I'm almost positive that what EG would have done had this Game Gladiators roster, who's now I think Nouns. If Nouns or I'm going to call them Gaming Gladiators because at the time they were Gaming Gladiators. If when EG was signing their two different rosters, if Gaming Gladiators had already stepped out of the scene and wasn't, had kind of like, if EG's decision to sign two like academy teams, you could call it, was post Gaming Gladiators leaving the scene, I can almost guarantee you that the two teams that EG would have signed probably should have been Party Astronauts and Gaming Gladiators. That would have made the most sense. And so why I bring that up is because I just feel like this roster has a serious problem with firepower. Like now that Hext and Classia are both gone from this roster, Classia got removed due to his behavior, which I still don't know that I entirely agree with. And Hext obviously moved up to the main roster. But I just don't see the firepower here. And so my thing is, if this is going to be something, I don't know what kind of deals players have signed on this roster, and I'm not saying to remove them or anything. It's obviously way too soon for any of that. You still need to see where this team goes. But this is just something where, like, I feel like if in 6 months you don't see any improvement with this roster and they kind of stagnate or get even worse, which I think is actually quite likely considering, like I said, they don't have Hext, they don't have Hex and they don't have Classia, and Wiz is an opper who seems to perform in some games and then other games he doesn't. I don't know. I just feel like this roster, Walco is an IGL, and now they have Stanislaw on the roster, so it's like, okay, well, Walco was never known for his fragging, so like, I just don't understand this roster. It just seems like an amalgamation at this point. They've kind of just ripped it to pieces, and now are just kind of like, you're just left with the shell of Carpe Diem. And so I just really I just don't understand how this roster continues if in a couple months they aren't performing. I feel like if they're not performing in a couple months, at the level that we would hope to see, which would be performing well in Challenger, maybe even winning the whole thing, right? Like if they perform super well in Challenger League, then that's one thing. But I think if they don't, I think you definitely have to consider, depending on how they do in Challenger League, in ESL Challenger League this season, season 42, I think you genuinely have to consider if Gaming Gladiators, the Nouns roster. I understand Nouns is an org and they picked up these guys, but their money is backed by crypto and it doesn't seem very stable. And you have EG, so I just feel like if this if this CD team doesn't end up doing anything in Challenger League, I think this is a roster where you seriously consider just dropping. I mean, I think you keep Stanislaw and Rush, obviously, but I think maybe you try to take some of the players from Nouns. I think you try to take some of those guys and bring them over to EG. I think that's what you have to do at this point because I just don't, or maybe you move Stanislaw and Rush to the PA roster, and then you bring in the Nouns roster as the new EG secondary team. I don't really know, but I just feel like it sucks on the timing because I don't know anymore. Like this roster just doesn't seem to have any firepower. Like when I'm looking at these games, like you'll see Stanislaw and Rush topping the scoreboards frequently. And for me, that's a bad sign. Like you just don't want those players on the top of your scoreboard. You want those to be the young players. You want those to be the new players, right? You don't want that being Stanislaw and Rush because Stanislaw and Rush aren't they're not like when you go to a bigger event, like Stanislaw and Rush should not be your top fraggers, right? Those are the players that you expect to bottom frag, right? Stanislaw, he's never been a great fragger, but he's an in-game leader, and Rush is more of the support player. So you really shouldn't be seeing those players at the top of your scoreboard consistently, and that's what I'm seeing. So I'm just concerned about the firepower here, and I actually genuinely think either you take some from the Iron Blood roster, or maybe one of the other, up and coming rosters, or I don't know about the Iron Blood. They have obviously some issues with reputation, and I know Gaming Gladiators does too to some degree. But I just think Gaming Gladiators or Nouns now, they're clearly one of the best teams, and I think you just need to pull from them, honestly. So that's kind of my stance on the EGCD roster. I know that's a little bit negative, but it's just I have concerns about the firepower on this roster, and I think anyone would after Hext and Classia have left because those were your two stars on the team. So yeah, who knows? They're playing MIBR on what day is that? They're playing MIBR on Monday and Team One on Thursday. So we will see if they can get redemption against Team One and in the rematch, and if they can beat MIBR. And so we will see how they do this week. But yeah, I think Challenger League is going to be the litmus test for this team, and if they perform well, you might see them stay. I don't know. I feel like either way, you have to mix up this roster a little bit. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, right? As for the EGPA team, I don't really have much to say because they haven't excuse me haven't really done anything this week. But they did beat. I didn't get to mention it on the last episode because they were in the middle of playing the final against Big Academy, but they ended up beating Big Academy at Fragadelphia and winning the tournament. So super congrats to the EG Party Astronauts lineup. Super glad they got this win. I was a little concerned about them after how badly they performed in Australia. So it's good to see them bounce back here. Hopefully we can see more performances from this EGPA roster like this. And that would be super cool to see. I actually think this is actually a little topic I wanted to talk about with EGPA actually is kind of how I see these two EG rosters kind of like competing in these separate tournaments. I see EGPA as the better team, obviously, and I think they're the team that they should be sending this team to the We Play Academy League. I know there's some age restraints there, and so I don't know actually. I don't know that they could. The average player age is 25.9. So I say that, but I don't think they can compete in We Play based on the regulations, which kind of sucks because I think this is the team that you would want to send to the We Play Academy League, just based off of how good they are, and especially now that how they performed against Big Academy. Like it seems like they would kind of fit perfectly into that kind of playing field, and they could really grow from it, with European practice. I feel like that would have been the obvious next step, but obviously with that age, average player age there, now that I look at it, I don't think they could, which is just more of a reason where I feel like it's really tough for this PA roster because based on their age, like I don't know, the We Play Academy would have been perfect, but like, where do they go at this point? Like, what league are they going to compete in? They don't have anything, right? Like, you're not going to see them in Challenger League because that's where the CD team is. You're not going to see them at a pro league because they're it's EG, so you can't have two EG teams performing at pro league for obvious reasons. I just don't really see what they do. Like, do you just try to boot camp in Europe and go to like all these different types of like pinnacle events and like just I don't know, like what but you're practicing for what exactly? Like what is your goal that you're aspiring to if you're this EGPA team? Like I just don't you're going to go to a bunch of like small ESL lands, like the ones in Australia and try to perform there, I guess. Like I just don't see the end goal with this team. I don't know. I don't see it. It's a little confusing in terms of what the direction is for this team because I think the obvious move would have been the We Play Academy League, and I think that would have been the right next step. But they're too old to be able to compete there, so I just don't really get it because I feel like the the ideal situation for EG is to have one team competing in the Challenger League and one team competing in the We Play Academy League. And that way, you have the better team. Like obviously you'd have to have two teams of young players, but the better team goes to the Academy League and tries to play there, and the other team goes into the Challenger League and performs there. And maybe if the We Play Academy League team doesn't perform well enough, but the Challenger League team wins Challenger League, or places like in the final or something, then maybe you switch it around, and maybe what that team then goes to We Play the next season, and then the We Play team goes to Challenger League the next season. Like, who knows? And I feel like that would be like the ideal setup. But because of this age thing, I just don't really understand how that's going to work. So I'm a little confused with PA in terms of their direction going forward, because I think they're the best team. They're one of the best, if not the best, tier 2 North American team. The only problem is they're just, because they're so much older, I don't know that they can compete in some of these other, in like the We Play Academy League, which I just think is the obvious next step. So while I do, obviously, again, congratulations on winning Philadelphia, that's massive, but I'm a little worried about the future of this team, and I don't know that Evil Geniuses has an obvious plan for this. And they that's the thing about EG, is they really have. I'll talk about this a little bit later with the Blueprint project, but there has been no clarity in terms of what this project is actually going to entail. This reminds me of, like, ironically, I'm a Sixers fan in basketball in the NBA. And they did this thing called the process. And while the process was a relatively known strategy, they took it to an extreme. But they didn't execute it quite well. They didn't utilize the draft picks in the best way possible, right? And they made some bad trades and stuff, and so it didn't turn out as good as it could have, right? Because they didn't maximize the opportunities they were given to the fullest, right? And that's what I kind of worry about with this Blueprint project, is just, I like the idea, but it all comes down to the execution, and I'm a little concerned that not only is there no clarity in how this project is going to be going forward, but I'm not really sure that EG knows how to handle this situation and is really thinking ahead about these types of issues that are at hand, because I'm not sure who is supposed to be the person thinking of these issues, right? I don't know who's controlling this Blueprint project. There's no clarity on that. So I don't know. I have some concerns about this whole situation, but overall, I'm glad for the PA team. I worry about the Blueprint project moving forward, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So transitioning, actually, we're going to go. That's kind of all I have for the academy type rosters, the EGCD, EGPA, and EGFE teams. So now we're going to talk about the main roster. Let's see here. Let's just do that. CS:GO main roster. Yeah. So let's talk about the main roster. Lots of stuff to talk about here. Obviously going to talk about Pro League, but I'll talk about that one in a second, because we got some news. When did we get this news? We got this news 2 days ago. Yeah, we got this news 2 days ago, Friday, that Malik, you heard me correctly, Malik is transitioning back into Evil Geniuses as a strategic coach. Obviously, this is massive news. This is incredible. I'm actually really happy about this. I think Malik is amazing, and I was really pissed off at Evil Geniuses for how they treated the whole situation and siding with Stewie. And I hope that what this means is that they have thought about it, realized they've messed up, and are making these correct steps to kind of resolve the situation, and kind of be like, look, we went with Stewie 2K, we made a mistake. I feel like this is a situation where, in order for Malik to come back to EG had to prove to Malik, hey, these are the steps we're taking to move in this type of direction, really trying to sell him on this plan even harder than the first time, because of how they treated him. That's what I would hope Malik kind of did in this situation, because I wouldn't want Malik coming into this, just because of I don't know, just willy nilly. You know what I mean? Like, I hope he really, really, thought about, because I mean, you got to consider, like, Malik was not in good health while he was with the whole Stewie 2K roster. Stewie 2K treated him like garbage. The whole roster did, the organization did. They didn't give him the respect he deserved and the control that he deserved. And so I really hope that Malik is coming back into this roster and he genuinely has the control to do what he wants. Because otherwise, I'm not really sure how Evil Geniuses can do this with a straight face. quite frankly. So hopefully that's what that means, right? Hopefully him coming back is a sign of, hey, we realized we messed up. We're going to give you more control to do whatever you want, essentially. You know, and we're going to trust you, right? We're going to put our faith in you, and D Warborg and the rest of our coaching staff, right? And so that's kind of what I'm hoping this is. So it's obviously great news. He brings a lot strategically, and he also is a very good people manager. You know, and I think that was quite obvious with some of the examples, ironically, that we found out from Stewie himself. You know, the coffee incident is obviously the Starbucks incident, rather, is the obvious one, right? But you know, I just think Malik is a really good person and a really good coach and a really good at a lot of different things. And I just think this is overall a really good move for them. But where I question this is this too late? Have they brought back Malik a little bit too late? Because EG's main roster is playing in Pro League on Wednesday. This got announced on Friday. I don't know how long this has been in the works. I don't know if Malik has been helping the team at all. Uh, you know, the last, I don't know, week. I'm not really quite sure. I think EG has been in Europe or in Malta for a couple days now. I think they were like flying out in the middle to the end of last week. So I think, you know, I just question how long has Malik was Malik already there? You know, when did this deal come into play? Has Malik been able to kind of guide this team in any way in the past, you know, couple days, maybe a week or so? Because I just worry this is coming in a little bit too late. And that he won't really be able to do too much. And the last thing that I want, because I really do think this Pro League is going to be the litmus test for this team to see how well they will perform. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, because the group stage of Pro League is always very weird. Just look at Group C, just look at all these other groups. The favorite almost never wins. You know, you always get upsets, right? Even Endpoint beating Na'Vi is like, just how does that even happen? So I think it's important to not go too deep into this stuff. But I definitely think their performance overall in Pro League is definitely should be a sign, should be a big sign of things to expect with this team. Um, you know, and obviously we're going to see a lot of the EG main roster in the next couple of weeks, so we're going to get plenty of fill in terms of like how this team performs and how this team plays, and what, you know, are their the good parts about them, the bad parts about them. I think they're going to do better than expected, but we'll see. You know, and I'm really kind of I'm just worried this Malik introduction is a little bit too late. The other question is, what is he doing within this roster specifically, or more so, I know he says strategic coach, which seems to be a little bit more obviously tactical, right? Like it sounds like an analyst type role, but it also seems like it's gonna be like, whereas Vorwerg I feel like is more of a people manager than a strategic coach, right? Because obviously when he was on Copenhagen Flames and he had Hooksy on his team, Hooksy seems like the kind of person who's like he understands how to put his players in the best positions to succeed. He seems like a very good in-game leader, and so I would imagine that D Vorborg or Vorborg just didn't need to have a whole lot of say in terms of the strategic elements of how the team was playing. Obviously, I'm not saying he had nothing to do with it, but I am saying, you know, I'm sure Hooksy took the brunt of that effort, right? And so I'm just thinking in my head, like, is this one of those things where it's kind of like Vorborg and Malik are going to be kind of working in a duo as like a tandem, where they're kind of going to be, obviously the main objective is to help the main team first, and then it's going to be okay once that starts picking up some ground, maybe there's not as many things that we have to go over. You know, maybe you've got the fundamentals down. There's not as much, like, we're not starting from scratch. We don't have to have like all of our efforts focused on this. Maybe then you kind of reach out to some of the PA, the CD, the FE teams and kind of help them a little bit. Um, you know, I just feel like Vorborg is going to be more of like the people manager, whereas Malik is going to be a lot more of the strategic side. Obviously, they can do both. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm saying that they're probably going to kind of focus on what their strengths are, and kind of they can still do the other stuff to kind of balance everything out. But it's just kind of like, I feel like that's kind of like the duo that they're going for. One's going to be more people manager side, and one's going to be more strategic side. That's the best thing that I can think of coming in with this situation. Um, and so that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen here. But it does make me question, how does this management or this coaching staff kind of how is it structured, right? Because we don't know anything. Like I said, Evil Geniuses doesn't tell us anything about this stuff. They refuse to for some reason, because you've got Valens, Malik, or I'm sorry, you have Vorborg, Malik, Valens, and Hepa. Valens and Hepa being your analyst type people. I just wonder how is this structured? How is this, like with the League of Legends team, you understand the structure. You understand that Peter Dunn, or oh my god, I can't speak. You understand that Peter Dunn is the head of it all, right? And he was the coach for the main team before, but now he heads the whole thing, right? And he's always very good at picking up talent. So it makes sense for him to be at the top, and then you kind of work your way down, and that's where you get into some of the other coaches. I'm sorry, I can't remember their names at the moment. I apologize. But and you kind of like there's a structure, there's a clear structure, and you can see the hierarchy, right? And you know what each person is tasked with, right? And with this team, I just don't really know what that is, right? Who is the head? Is it Malik and Vorborg in this like weird like type of like Senate House of Representatives type relationship, kind of. I didn't know what metaphor to use there. I'm sorry. Um, where kind of both are in charge and they kind of balance each other out, and one focuses and they each focus on their strengths and kind of work together, right? Because Vorborg, for example, it seems to be really good at people managing and finding talent and kind of developing them and helping their mental. I think that's a big reason why he was brought into this main roster. Whereas, Malik seems to be, yes, he can do those things and he's very good at developing talent. Obviously, that's something that you need to do as a strategic coach. Someone who's focusing on the strategies is setting up those players to succeed. But on top of that, he is a very tactical. He can be a very tactical, strategic mind. He has a better mind for the game maybe than Vorborg does in terms of strategy, right? And so it's just kind of like, are they going to be working in a tandem, and then they're going to start with the main roster as things get a little bit the load gets lightened a little bit, maybe then they kind of branch out and help the other teams a little bit. I just want to know what this hierarchy is because it just doesn't really make much sense. The structure of the Blueprint project does not make sense quite yet. It's not clear, and there's a lot of things that are missing and a lot of details I would love to know, like the direction that the CD and PA teams are supposed to be going in. What is the end goal for those teams? What is the coaching staff like? How is it structured? How do they work with all the teams? Like there's a lot of questions I have here, and they have not been answered. And so that is some interesting things to think about when I looked at this Malik signing. But like I said, overall, this is an amazing move. I'm really happy about this. I think this is going to be really, really good for the team, and it also just helps from PR perspective, but I think it also kind of, you look into, okay, well, what is the methodology of EG making this decision? I think this is, in the past 2 weeks, this might be the best decision they've made, because the previous decisions they've made have not been so glowing. With the League of Legends Danny situation in terms of, kind of how they were finagling that a little bit. Um, uh, and then obviously the conflict of interest with Fragadelphia, not, just poor decisions. So this seems like a good one for a little bit of a change, right? So that's enough of that topic. We're going to talk about the ESL Pro League Group D stage. It begins on Wednesday for those who are unaware. Evil Geniuses. Oh, real briefly, just wanted to mention this. If anyone wants to know how desperate EG is, striving for a good result here, EG is currently, their main roster is ranked number 35 in the world. The EGPA team, who is the highest ranked academy roster that Evil Geniuses has, is ranked 39th in the world. EG needs to perform well here, because quite frankly, it looks like the EGPA roster is almost just as good as Evil Geniuses, the main roster is, and that's not a good thing. Desperate for a good result here, I think is quite obvious to say. Nonetheless, moving into who are the opponents that Evil Geniuses will be facing in this group. This is a little bit of an easier group, even though EG is definitely the worst team in the group. You've got the likes of Cloud9, Liquid, Eternal Fire, Movie Star Riders, and Furia. So I kind of ranked these teams just kind of in a real quick. I just kind of went down the line and went, okay, well, which teams do I think are going to be the top 3 teams? Which teams do I think are going to be the bottom 3 teams? What order do I think it's going to be in? Obviously, this isn't an ideal situation. I understand, like I mentioned before, these group stages almost never go the way that the favorite takes first, the second best takes second, the third best takes third. That almost never happens. If you want any proof of that, just go look at every previous group stage in ESL Pro League so far. This format is dog shit. But that's besides the point. The point is, I ranked Liquid as the number one team, Cloud9 as a close second. I think honestly, you could probably flip flop those teams either way you want. I think it's just putting Liquid above Cloud9 just because of what we've seen recently from Liquid compared to Cloud9, where we haven't seen them play at all. So there's a lot of question marks with Cloud9. And then I think you look at the next couple rosters, and these bottom three or these not bottom three, but these next three, I feel like you can it's going to be a toss up between these three teams. You've got Furia, Eternal Fire, and Movistar Riders, and I've ranked them in that order accordingly. Yeah, I think I have to give Furia the benefit of the doubt that they're going to perform and be somewhat better than before. Because they are just the most consistent Brazilian team at this point. Even though they've had a little bit of fluctuation in their level in terms of being like a top 8 team at the major compared to just being like a top 12 to 15 team in the world. But I think you still got to give them their credence. Just benefit of the doubt essentially. And then I've put Eternal Fire over Movistar Riders just because I think Eternal Fire has just better firepower. And then I put EG at the bottom. EG has everything to prove here. I'm not saying that that I want EG or that if EG gets like fifth out of is the fifth best team in the group that it's like a big W because they were supposed to get sixth. Definitely not. But I do think that I mean for a start, let's get a fucking series win. How about that? Because fuck's sake, we will be absolutely reamed if we don't even win a map or a series. So please win a series, please. If Endpoint can do it, right? Please, I'm begging you. Against Navi of all teams. Please just win a series. For a start. But yeah. So basically, I just kind of want to go through these teams in the order in which they're playing them, and whether or not I think this will be kind of like what I expect to see. Evil Geniuses, do I think they have an upset potential in certain games compared to others? What are the odds? I can't really go into if I expect EG to perform because we have no idea what EG actually even really looks like because of the amount of time that we haven't seen them and how much practice they've put in, right? Like you would like to expect that they're not going to be the same team that you saw at the Blast the Blast playoffs or whatever the fuck stupid bracket after the group stage that was. You can expect them to look different than that, and you can expect them to look different from the open qualifier. Not that the open qualifier you can really even take too much from since they're playing tier 2 NA teams. Tier 2, tier 3 NA teams. Yeah, there's really I can't go into depth in terms of like how does EG like to play, what is their style like. I think you can make certain you can make certain assumptions based off of the players on the team. Like you can expect Breezy to be a really aggressive player, and I think Breezy is the player to watch during Pro League. Just because for Evil Geniuses, just because I expect Automatic to perform really well. I think he's just obviously the best player, the most consistent player on the team. And then I think Breezy is really the question mark where if he hits a level, if he can start hitting his level consistently, which I think he has shown glimpses of a lot more recently, I think that if he can kind of hit those levels again and a little bit more consistently, I think you can consider Evil Genius as a serious threat at that point, as an upset threat, right? Obviously then you have to, obviously, it takes three players to perform, relatively, pretty well in order for you to kind of have that level. I don't know. I think Cirque is obviously a player to watch just because he's the opera on your team, but I think Breezy is going to be the main thing. Are his aggressive plays going to work? Is EG setting him up properly to succeed? I think that's a big question mark because I think Breezy is a player who loves to be aggressive, and he just hasn't. I don't actually think that his level has dropped as badly as it looks. I just think that his team has never actually supported him in the way that they need to, so that he can get these entry kills. I mean, he's essentially trying to get entry kills where he's all by himself. There's nobody to trade. There's no flash for him. I mean, it's the hardest thing ever. And so and he likes to be aggressive. And I just don't think people that EG has ever really utilized him properly. Since their decline, right? And so I think that's why he's going to be the player to watch coming into these games. I think that's what's going to be the case. Cirque is obviously going to be one to look for. You want to see his confidence come back, right? If they're able to get an upset, I think the confidence would just blow up for this team if they beat like a Cloud9, a Liquid, and so that's what you want to see. You want to see what this team looks like when they're confident, because I feel like when their confidence is up, they're definitely going to play a whole lot better. And that's what we want to see. We want these players to get more confidence under the belt because right now it's coming back, but it's slow and it's gradual. So getting an upset over a Cloud9 or a Liquid would be really, really big for these guys, or a Furia for that matter. Um, you know, um, so that's kind of my stance, right? But you're still going to want to see, is Cirque going for those aggressive plays? How are they setting Cirque up to succeed, right? Those are things that you want to look for. I still think Breezy's the player to look out for because I think he has shown more glimpses of his past than Cirque has as of the last couple of weeks. But obviously, Cirque is the operator. You're going to want to make sure that he's being set up properly. Um, and then Hext. I think Hext has been really good, honestly. I think Hext has been good. Obviously, you want to make sure he's feeling good. You want to see him perform. But I think he's actually done a really damn good job as the next player in, and so we'll kind of see how he performs. But yeah, overall, it'll be cool to watch him play again. I've always liked his energy that he brings, and so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so anyways, first up, they're playing Cloud9 on Wednesday at 6:30, I believe, in the morning. Is that 6:30 in the morning? Is that correct? Oh God, is that 6:30? I think it is. I think it's 6:30 in the morning. Maybe. It's not clear. It's not clear. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's. I don't think that's 6:30 in the morning. That's got to be at night. Anyways, regardless, they're playing Cloud9 first on Wednesday. Okay. Um, Listen, they're gonna lose to Cloud9. I don't think they beat Cloud9. The odds for this matchup are a 74% to 26. Look, there's a world where maybe they beat them if Nafany has an abysmal calling, session that he sometimes has been having a little bit more as of recent. But I don't know, man. It's just really tough to see this team competing against the likes of Axile and Shiro. I mean, I think you're obvious. Again, Axile is going to be a perfect 1v1 matchup with Breezy. I think that's going to be super fun to watch if Breezy's hitting his form. Breezy versus Axile, right? These two riflers that are so talented. How will they match up against each other? I think that's really interesting to think about. And then Shiro Cirque, I don't even think is really much of a conversation, unfortunately, anymore at this point. I mean, it's pretty obvious Shiro is just better. But if we can see Cirque kind of coming back, maybe Cirque can make it interesting. Automatic is just super consistent. So also, that's kind of another player we have under our belt to kind of, a nice rifler to see. Let's see how he performs type of thing. But yeah, I think Cloud9 is, probably reasonable to expect them to win, but I think there's some upset potential here. We haven't seen Cloud9 play in a while. They've been a little shaky in the past. Who knows, right? Who knows? But yeah, overall, obviously, my opinions on them playing Cloud9 and Liquid are going to be pretty negative just because I just don't really see them doing it. But there's always upset potential in these group stages, and we'll see. Obviously, Cloud9 can't prepare at all for Evil Geniuses, and I get the sense that Cloud9 is the type of team that likes to prep. So, maybe that's a good thing for us. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I think it'll be cool to watch Breezy versus Axile and Cirque and Shiro maybe. But yeah. One thing I will say is don't expect to see Mirage during the series. Cloud9 is a really good Mirage team, and if EG picks Mirage, I'm going to be well. You can just mark that one up as a 2-0 because that is not going to be good. Yeah, moving on to Team Liquid, which is who they play on Thursday at 1:30. Yeah, if this is going to be military time, then this has to be 6:30. This has to be 6:30 in the morning. That Cloud9 game. So okay. Anyways, sorry, just had to get that out of the way. Got a text message. Anyways, yeah, playing Team Liquid at 1:30 on Thursday. The odds for this game are even worse, guys. 82 to 17.8. It's looking rough for EG. Yeah, I think it's quite safe to say that this is probably going to be a Team Liquid victory. I just don't see how any. Again, the cool matchup here is Breezy and Yakindar, right? Very aggressive riflers, like to get entries. But yeah, I think EG or just Liquid has just way too much talent on this team to lose to Evil Geniuses. Honestly. I think they can just outskill them. I think the only angle you can really use to kind of say like, oh, well, maybe Evil Geniuses has a chance is like it's a domestic matchup, so like maybe, right? But typically the advantage with domestic matchups, or not the advantage, well, I guess the advantage for the less experienced team is that, well, these two teams have played each other so much, that's why domestic matchups are such shit shows essentially, because you just don't know who's going to win. These two teams have scrimmed each other so many times, right? Like, but that's not the case here, I don't think, because I don't think Liquid and Evil Genius's main roster have even scrimmed that much. It's not like both have been in NA at the same time for very for the same for that long. And if they were, EG was qualifying for the major, I don't know that they were scrimming Team Liquid all that much. So we'll see. But yeah, just I don't know. I don't know about this one. I think this is going to be probably the most one-sided matchup in the entire group stage. So boys, do not be shocked if Evil Geniuses goes down 0-2 in the group. That should not surprise you. Okay. Hopefully they don't, but don't be shocked. Okay, that's expected against the teams of this caliber. Moving on into Friday's match at 10 a.m. against Eternal Fire. This is where they should take a dub, although for some reason Eternal Fire has an 83% chance. Even better odds than against Team Liquid. I have no idea why this is the case. I don't know if Eternal Fire have actually been that good to like say that they are going to be this heavy of a favorite. It doesn't really make much sense to me. So yeah, that's a little strange. I think this is probably the first game where EG is going to have a good chance of winning. I don't think Eternal Fire is all that special. Well, okay, let me preface this. Okay, Eternal Fire is a cool team because it reminds you of like a powered up Space Soldiers roster from like 2016 or 2017 or whatever. Um, They've brought Major back. They have Paz back as well. Woxic, Xantares, and Emor. I think this is a cool Turkish roster. I really do like this roster. I think it's super interesting. They have a lot of individual talent, but I get the feeling that strategically they're not really going to be the most strategic team in the world. And so it's gonna this. I think this series is going to be a slugfest. It's just going to be whichever team has the better individual form. You could make the argument that it's going to be Eternal Fire, but I think a lot of people just look at Xantares' name and just immediately think of all of the videos and Xantares' peak and stuff, and they just immediately assume. Or same thing with Woxic, they just think of all his highlights and they don't think of the lowlights. So we'll see. I think this is definitely a series that EG could take. I think if you're a better, I mean, friggin' 16.9% to 83. If you don't take these odds, I don't know. This seems like the most likely upset of the group stage so far. Um, you know, so we'll see. How that goes. But yeah, I think that there's potential there. I think that's the one that the most potential so far. Moving on into Friday's match, they're going to be playing against Movistar Riders. I think this team is pretty terrible. Actually, Evil Geniuses is favored to win this game 50%, 50.5% to 49.5%. So by a hair. Yeah, I don't think Movistar is even. Oh, sorry. I don't think Movistar is that good. You know, they have. I mean, it's almost the same roster. It's just they don't have Sampaius, and I think Sampaius was kind of set up to succeed in that roster. So I just don't really expect anything out of Movistar. Although, if I've learned anything from Movistar Riders, it is do not underestimate them because they will beat you. So I think this is one of those sleeper teams that like low key. Who knows if their structure is good and Mopos was always a really interesting player. So who knows? Maybe this team does something. Maybe this team ends up being like the dark horse in Group D. But if I had to look at this, with them without Sun Pius, I think it's a big hit to them, and so I do wonder if EG. I think the EG definitely, if EG performs the way I would hope for them to perform. Okay, my hope for this team is they probably go down, like if I'm being entirely realistic and I'm just playing the odds, right? And I'm assuming, right, that EG is playing at their best form that I could imagine for this group. I think they lose to Cloud9. I think they lose to Team Liquid, and they would beat Eternal Fire, Movistar, and Furia in a best case scenario, right? Going 3-2 in the group, and I think that would make them. I think it would depend on round count or some whatever tiebreaker bullshit they come up with. Maybe, but I would want them to be the third place. I think best case scenario for this team is third place in the group. Um, Again, best case scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying I expect it to happen, but best case scenario, third place in the group. Expected result, probably last. Just being honest. Um, just being honest, probably last. But you don't know. Movie Star Writers, I don't think they're that great of a team. I think EG definitely has a chance here, but who knows? Yeah, we haven't seen Movie Star. We haven't seen Evil Geniuses in a while. Um, so who knows? You can't really get too much from that. And this is going to be a similar one. Furia, you haven't seen anything from Furia. You're kind of just relying on what you've seen from this roster of players before. I just don't think you can count Furia out. I think they're quite clearly the third best team in the group. Well, I say clearly. They're not really clearly because you haven't seen them play, and they were a little shaky. At the end of the I don't know season last year. So it's tough to say. It really is tough to say with this group. But I just think going off of the name value alone, going off of how consistent Furia has been in terms of their overall performance. I mean, they've been the best Brazilian team for the past couple years now. I just think you can't count them out. This is a game that I would expect Evil Geniuses to lose. The betting. I don't even know if this is actual betting odds. It's just HLTV odds. I don't know how accurate that is compared to the betting odds. But Furia has a 59.2% compared to Evil Geniuses 40.8%. Yeah, I don't know. I think Furia is definitely the better team, but we will see how it goes. And at this point in the tournament, in the tournament stage, we should know how good Evil Geniuses is, and we should probably be able to take a pretty safe assessment of how good Furia is, and we should be able to say which team do you think is actually going to win by this stage in the tournament. So we will see. This game is going to be on Sunday, I believe, right? 25th should be Sunday. Yep. So we will see how it goes. We'll see if it's a big important game or not. But yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Like I said, my expectations for this team are to lose every single series they play. Maybe, you know what? No, I take that back. I expect them to win one series. I expect them to beat. Which team do I expect them to beat? I'm going to go ahead and say Movie Star just because I think the firepower on Eternal Fire is better. Obviously, that can go very wrong if Movie Star's structure and this new guy they brought in, who I think is Martinez, if he ends up being good, maybe that spells trouble. But I think Movie Star is probably the best team for EG to play against during this group stage. So I expect them to win one series. Probably won't be against Movie Star. It'll probably be some random upset series against somebody else. Who knows? These group stages are weird, but yeah, I expect them to get one series win and overall be the worst team in the group. That's what I expect. I think worst case scenario is they don't win a series, let alone a map. And then the best case scenario is they get third place in the group and they move on to the playoffs. I think that would be massive for this team. So we will see how that goes. That's pretty much all I have on Pro League. That was a lot, guys. That took a lot out of me. It's weird doing this during the day. Also, I just ate breakfast, so a pretty big breakfast. So I'm just ready to hibernate. You know what I mean? Like I don't even want to think straight right now. Normally I do this and it's like, oh, I just came out of the shower, like I'm chilled, I'm relaxing, like it's just easier to do this kind of thing. But regardless about my situation, I did want to talk about one more thing before I sign off for the episode this week, and that is going to be what is coming up next, guys. So what is coming up next? I think for ESL Impact, for the EG FE team, obviously they're playing COG Red, but I think they're also having some other stuff coming up in the next couple of in the next week or so that we can talk about. I think could be wrong there, but I think. Oh, geez, sorry. The EGCD team, like I said, is going to be playing MIBR in Team 1. We'll have that to talk about next week. The EGPA team, I don't really know that they're doing anything. Obviously, we'll have Pro League to talk about, of course. And then I think for the League of Legends team, play-ins is going to start the following week. I could be wrong. Let me look at that again. Yeah, I think it starts next week. Or not next, well, yeah, next week. It's going to start. Yeah, I think it starts next week. So maybe that's something that we can preview next week and next week's episode. So that'll be interesting. We'll probably get news at that point as to whether or not Danny is going to play or not. I suspect he won't be playing. And as terrible as it sounds, I think, from a strategic standpoint, it might actually be better if we have Kaori or Kaori because of his champion pool. But that's for next week. That's for next week's discussion. But we'll probably know that answer by end of this week, so that'll be interesting. The last thing that's going to be interesting to listen to kind of hear from EG about, well, not really hear from EG, but to kind of to listen to somebody's video about EG is Thorin. Thorin is going to post, I would assume this week, a video about evil geniuses, kind of hitting them pretty hard. He did remember. I did mention this last week that he did make a video about evil geniuses, about the whole Danny situation and the LCS situation last week, and he also did touch on the employees from Evil Geniuses and some of them kind of taking shots at him and saying things they probably shouldn't say on their professional accounts. But that was pretty light. In fact, when I watched that video, I was like, okay, he let EG off the hook a little easy. Honestly, I expect this can't be it. Like, there's gonna be another video where he really digs into this. And sure enough, on By the Numbers this week, he teased that basically, yeah, he's gonna make a video that's just gonna absolutely slam them in the face. So, metaphorically in a video game. No. So we will see. We will. That'll be an interesting thing to talk about. I'm sure that'll come out this week, and that'll be obviously a nice topic to talk about. I always like when Thorin does this kind of stuff, or Richard Lewis, or any pundit, or I say pundit, journalist, who knows what they're talking about, right? It's just nice to hear it from journalists, especially ones like Thorin and Richard, who you can trust 100% with this type of ethics and moral debate type of topics, because they are of the highest standard. It's good coming from them because it's just 100% facts, and Thorin keeps receipts, man. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to expose a little bit more about EG, which cannot be a bad thing if you're a fan. You want to know what's going on in your org as you're in your favorite team. So that'll be interesting to talk about. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm sure we'll get to talk about that next week, which I'm sure every person, if there's even anyone who watches this who is even somewhat associated with UG, is probably like, oh, please God, that video don't come out. But it probably will this week, and so I'm going to talk about that as well. So looking forward to that, honestly. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm trying to make sure that I've touched on just about everything that I have here on my list, but I can't see anything else. So looking forward to an exciting week this week. Gonna get to watch EG play, the main roster play, for 5 days in a row this week. Probably not good news for CS:GO fans, but really good news for me. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be awesome, and also looking forward to the content Thorin's gonna produce. Looking forward to talking about the League of Legends team again next week, and kind of seeing how EGCB does this week in ESL Challenger. Yeah, just overall super super excited for this week for EG. In terms of EG news, I should say. I'm sure EG's not exactly stoked about all the things I just mentioned. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. That's all I can think of. So thank you guys for watching. I've been really appreciating the support. As you know, I understand last video didn't do as well, probably a little bit just from honeymoon phase and if you can even, I know, getting like fucking 20 views, dude. Like, what are you talking about, honeymoon phase? But I understand. I wasn't exactly glowing about Evil Geniuses in the last episode. I can get that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy kind of listening to my thoughts and my rundown. Hopefully this is nice in terms of just kind of getting like you now, like, it's kind of, you can just take it like, okay, well, this is what's happening this week with EG. Cool. Like I said, I'm still keeping up to tabs on terms of when is Dota 2 going to start for TI, when is the Rocket League season going to start, that type of stuff. I'm still keeping tabs on that, so I will make sure that when that stuff is happening, I talk about it. Again, I have limited experience, but I'll bring it up and I'll talk about it as to the best of my ability, and so I don't want to leave any of those out. So yeah, just I just want to make sure people know I am keeping tabs on that stuff. I'm making sure that I don't miss it. Um, and with that, that's everything. I'm sorry for dragging this outro on a little bit too long, but yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully we have a great week of performances for EG. So let's see how they do. Hopefully we don't have to get removed from ESL Pro League. I know they won't, but regardless of how they perform, but a series win, guys, just a series win, please.